In today's video, I want to share with you my mental health journey. We'll start from the beginning and all the way through. I became severely mentally ill and then healing, and here I am! The healing never ends. And before I dive in, I want to give a trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about suicide, addiction, eating disorders, and mental health struggles. I think a lot of musicians, creatives, artists struggle with mental health issues, whether that be a personality disorder, a mood disorder, addiction, anxiety, depression, PTSD, the list can go on and on. I think because we are so sensitive and emotional, that is why we become creatives. So I wanted to share my story today to help others feel not alone, because I know that in the worst of it, and still I fall into this at times, I think I'm all alone in this and I am broken and I'm a special case. I feel like something's wrong with me. But the more that I hear my story out there in the world, the less I feel alone. And the more I realize there's actually nothing wrong with me. And my mental health struggle has made me the incredible performer, songwriter, teacher, singer that I am today. Hey there! In case we haven't met yet, my name is Liz, and this is Mind, Body, and Soul Singing, where I help singers like you and me to obtain physical, emotional, and spiritual freedom in our voices. I'm a singer-songwriter, I'm a vocal coach, and I'm pretty vocal on this channel about my muscle tension dysphonia diagnosis. And that's also why I'm sharing this mental health story, because MTD is a mind, body, and soul disorder. Chapter 1, my childhood. I guess you could call it childhood trauma. But I will say this, I felt very loved as a child. I was cared for and nurtured, and I had a pretty good childhood. But saying that, I think I was born a very sensitive, emotional person. I'm a Scorpio, a water sign. I was raised by a narcissistic family member, so that wasn't super helpful, even though they did the best they could, and I did feel and do feel very loved by them. I experienced my parents divorcing at a young age. I became a high achiever, so getting all A's, winning contests. A family member of mine was very focused on high achieving, and the intention was good, but I think focusing on high achieving as like a way to operate in life, it can be dangerous. And at least in my experience, focusing on my achievements to feel validated and good enough have created a lot of dis-ease in me, because who am I if I'm not achieving? Am I no good? Maybe that was how I was internalizing it and why I was high achieving, to feel good enough. When I was a little girl, I was very shy. I still am very shy. I am what you would call an intro extro. So I'm introverted and extroverted, because perhaps I seem extroverted here, because I am. So I am introverted in some spaces and I'm extroverted in some spaces. And from a very young age, I rejected that about myself. I hated that I was shy. I had terrible social anxiety, which is very painful. We are social creatures. I felt like I couldn't really connect with people. I remember praying to God to not be shy, to be outgoing, and praying to be thin and beautiful and popular. That's where it started. Chapter 2, eating disorders. For me, It all started with dieting and exercising, and it was a progressive illness. My mom was always dieting as well, so that was the role model in my life. And I remember going on walks together, and it started innocent enough. And then it evolved into anorexia with over-exercising and using exercise as punishment, like for overeating or whatever, or as a way to control. So, anorexia is just a way to control, life. And then I remember when I was anorexic, hitting my goal weight and then realizing I still wasn't happy. And then just having this thought and feeling like, wow, I'm just going to keep losing weight until I die. And then anorexia evolved into bulimia. And at the worst point, I was throwing up in bags in my room because I was no longer allowed to go to the bathroom after a meal because people were finding out what I was doing. I stopped going to school as a sophomore. I stayed in the house. I put sheets over the windows and the mirrors. I stopped showering because I didn't want to look at my body. And I stopped wearing jeans. I was scared of jeans because what if they're too tight? What if they don't fit? So I believe I had like an agoraphobia. I wouldn't go outside. And if there's a phobia about clothes, I had that too. I was taking laxatives as well. When I did go to school, I would binge like through the lockers. I would take people's food and binge and purge. I would go to places like Walmart or the grocery store and steal and binge in the aisles and purge. So at this point, my life was starting to spiral out of control. So this person who was a high achiever, all A's, perfect, I took a nosedive at this point. All F's, dropped out of school, not functioning in society at all. Chapter 3, my borderline personality disorder diagnosis. So at this point, I am about 17. I am displaying borderline personality disorder symptoms. At this point, I don't know anything's wrong with me. I don't know I have an eating disorder. I think I'm fine. I think this is the way life is because no one has ever told me otherwise. I remember thinking at this point when I stopped going to school, it was a Sunday, and I remember thinking, oh, my mom's gonna make me go to school on Monday and I'll have to wear jeans. I have to kill myself. And so I attempted to kill myself. This was the first of many suicide attempts where I was hospitalized in the psych ward. This is where I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. These are the symptoms I displayed, and I still do just have these symptoms. It's just different now as a 37-year-old woman than as a 17-year-old girl. So the symptoms are fear of abandonment, unstable relationships, unclear and shifting self-image, impulsive, self-destructive behaviors, self-harm, extreme emotional mood swings, chronic feelings of emptiness, explosive anger. And I added this one to it because I find it's part of borderline personality disorder to be an all or nothing, black and white thinker. So with this diagnosis, the awareness started to sprout. Oh, I have an eating disorder. That's what this is. Oh, I have a mental health problem. And these diagnoses, for me, are helpful. Not everyone likes labels, but for me, it helped to explain what was going on with me, and it helped me to move in a direction to heal with that information. And it also helped me to realize I'm not alone. These diagnoses are common. Like, I'm not the only one experiencing this. So, the diagnoses for me were good because Now I can gain more awareness. Now I know what's happening to me. I can make sense of things and I can make them right. Not to say that that's an easy thing to do, but at least I can start walking down that path. This was the point in my life when, I started therapy. So DBT therapy and CBT therapy and talk therapy. I was put on medication, I believe Prozac at this point. I had to try a bunch of medications before I found the right one. At this point, I started to work on my relationship with food, but I was so young and it just takes time to heal an eating disorder. Chapter 4, drugs and alcohol. At this point in my life, I'm 19. I've been in and out of the psych wards. I'm displaying a tremendous amount of borderline personality disorder symptoms, along with the eating disorder, and just overall rejecting myself and hating myself is where I was at. And so at this point, I discover alcohol, I discover drugs, I start smoking a pack or two of Newport cigarettes a day, and I also discover men, so sex and relationships. And the alcohol and the drugs really helped my social anxiety, and it really helped me to feel like I fit in, and it helped to numb my pain. So I am a person that experiences intense emotions, and drinking and drugging and smoking cigarettes and sleeping around and partying and all forms of checking out and numbing were the ways that I coped with everything I've been talking about up to this point. In this period of my life, I was in a drunk driving accident. I wasn't driving, but my friend was, and I almost died, but that didn't stop me. At this point, I was stealing, and I went to jail a few times. That didn't stop me from continuing along this destructive path. At this point in my life, I started my first real romantic relationship, and it was abusive. And he was abusive, and I was abusive. And also, I was cheating and sleeping around and lying, again, because I hated myself. So if I can't love myself or take care of myself, manage myself, my emotions, how can I do any of that for anyone else? I couldn't. At this point, I'm still struggling with food, still psych wards, still suicide attempts. At this point, I'm self-harming. Chapter 5, my music career starts. So now I am about 25 years old, and I am wanting to love myself. I don't love myself yet, but I remember having that thought that I want this. I want to love myself and take care of myself. So I decided I was going to quit my cigarette habit and start my first band, Analog Heart. So you can find us on all major streaming platforms and on YouTube as well. We were a band for 10 years. We had a lot of beautiful adventures together. We opened for Bon Jovi and Daughtry and won a lot of awards and recorded 3 or 4 albums. It was through Analog Heart, that I figured out who I was as a singer, songwriter, performer. And it was also through this period of my life where I actually became more sick, in a sense. In Analog Heart, I was belting a ton all of a sudden. So I go from shy girl to this really loud, emotive performer. It took me a few years to get there in the performance department because I am so shy and I have severe stage fright and social anxiety. So overcoming that was a challenge, but I did overcome it. But I think the way that I coped being up there on stage and doing that was by being very loud and charismatic and rejecting that soft side of myself. I thought soft singing was lame and bad. And now I'm like just making that connection, like maybe it's because I'm shy. Maybe that's why I never wanted to sing softly. This was the period of my life where I went to Berklee College of Music, so a very prestigious music college. And so my high achieving was back at this point, and I'm at Berklee, and I remember my vocal coach there trying to encourage me to sing like soft songs, and I just wasn't having it. I just wasn't ready for it. So yeah, at this point, like I said, I have like these two personas, that I'm an extroverted performer, and I'm also this quiet, shy girl, and I'm only accepting one side of myself and I'm rejecting the other side. And in this period of my life, I start teaching music, and it's the same issue. All of a sudden, I have to know things, and I'm in a leadership position, and I have to guide people and help people and be charismatic and talk a lot. So, like seeing like 9 students in a row and talking and talking and talking. So again, expressing this extroverted side of myself more now than ever before. And in this realm in my life is where perfectionism, people pleasing, constantly going and doing as a lifestyle without like intention or slowing down and asking myself, what am I doing? What do I want? Codependency. So these things were bubbling up and coming to a head in my life. So in my band and in teaching, and really having no boundaries either. So I'm coming second, and I'm just losing it at this point. At that period in my life, I wanted to be famous so badly. It moved from wanting to be popular and thin and beautiful into wanting to be famous, thin and beautiful and perfect. I think I wanted popularity and fame for validation, to be good enough, to be worthy of love, to be successful. So I was just grinding myself into the ground for this. At this point, my eating is still slowly getting better. At this point, I'm in a relationship now with a narcissistic abuser. So repeating that pattern from my childhood, not realizing it at the time. And I was also still an abuser myself. I was still partying, still having lots of borderline personality disorder episodes, still self-harming. And so here is where a lot of good things were happening in my life, a lot of changes, but all of these coping mechanisms I use to survive are like really coming to a head. You can't really operate from this place forever. Chapter 6, my muscle tension dysphonia diagnosis and my fibromyalgia diagnosis. So again, like I said, you can only like operate from that place for so long until that emotional pain and that spiritual pain becomes physical. Now at this point, my body is screaming at me saying, Liz, I can't take this anymore. You need to listen to me. You need to stop. So I was diagnosed with muscle tension dysphonia because my symptoms were severe burning pain, tightness when I spoke and when I sang. If you want to hear my entire MTD story, I'll link it up here and I'll put it down in the description. And this was also the point where I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, where I have what they call nerve pain. Just pain that would shift and move, headaches, tension. And so you can see at this point, I'm unable to keep up with how I've been doing things, and my body is literally shutting down, and I'm moving now into physical symptoms that are chronic. Chapter 7, Healing. My muscle tension dysphonia diagnosis helped me to heal so much because it forced me to stop and take a real good look at me. So MTD was the catalyst that forced me to look at perfectionism, people pleasing, constantly going and doing, codependency, operating through that lens in my band and in my teaching business, where I'm a self-employed teacher without any boundaries right now. At this point in my healing, I have found a great speech therapist at Mass General Hospital and retraining the physical symptoms. So learning better techniques so I can use my voice in a more efficient way. I believe one of the big ingredients in my healing from MTD is voice lessons, speech therapy, and voice education. So learning all about the voice. And being a vocal coach myself, I have to teach the voice, so I'm learning about the voice. Another component to my healing was learning about mind, body, and I also add the soul to it, mind, body, and soul illnesses that are often chronic. So learning about chronic pain and learning about the nature of pain. And I'm going to link that below in the description because that was a true game changer. Knowledge is power. So the more that I learned about my voice and the more that I learned about the nature of chronic pain, that I intuitively felt that that's what MTD is. It's like a chronic thing. It helped me to heal. At this point, I start yoga and meditation. I did not like it at first. It took me a whole year to like yoga, to slow down and actually understand that yoga is not just to exercise my physical body, but it's actually for my mind and my soul. And if I can tend to my mind and my soul through this yoga practice that for me is spiritual as well, I can tend to the physical symptoms because it's all connected. A fast racing mind that's rigid and kind of yelling orders at you and just not nice is going to create a body that's really rigid and tight and painful. At this point, I started to exercise and eat for wellness instead of wanting to lose weight and being thin, and instead of wanting to hate myself and hurt myself through eating and exercising, I wanted to love myself through it. So this was a huge shift in my wellness and being able to love myself and take care of myself. At this point, I'm still in therapy. I love therapy. I'm still in therapy now. I'm a person who is fascinated by mental illness and mental wellness and how does one get there. And I'll end this chapter with something I find important, is this mindset of believing that you can heal and believing that your body isn't broken, and not going to the doctor and then just believing everything they say. I had to go to many doctors and just say, nope, I don't agree with you. You know, one example was they, of course, diagnosed me with acid reflux. And I said, well, what if I change my diet? Will that help? And they said, no. And I said, I don't believe you. And so I went somewhere else. And then I went to another doctor about my MTD, and they said, well, you're just older now. I'm 27, and you know, your voice isn't what it used to be. And I was like, I don't believe you. And I fired them and I went elsewhere. And I'm having this belief mindset that my body is powerful and capable of healing. And I don't believe in chronic pain anymore. I instead make the decision within me that I am not broken. My body is powerful and my body is screaming to me that something's wrong, and I'm going to listen and I'm going to figure this out. And everything I'm talking about here is the education about chronic pain and the nature of pain in the brain. I always think about the placebo effect. So if you believe you can heal, like the placebo effect is like 50% effective. So just adding that ingredient into your healing pot of soup will just add so much more spice to it and will help in the healing. So having that mindset that nothing is absolute, having an open mind, a learner's mind, anything is possible. Like I said before, I love diagnoses because it helps me to understand and to move forward. But I don't put too much power in there. And what I mean by that is I don't believe that I will just be sick forever and I won't be able to use my voice anymore and I'm just crazy and I just have nerve pain and this is just it. I don't believe that at all. Chapter 8, quitting alcohol. So at this point, I am 36 years old. This is about a year and a few months ago. Up to this point, I've healed so much, but I'm still drinking and I'm an entertainer, so I'm still partying on the weekends. And I'm in denial that I have a problem, but I hit a rock bottom and I shocked myself by quitting alcohol. I think I was inspired by my best friend and my co-singer in my band now. Her name is Jess. She's the best. And she quit drinking and I saw her do it. And also I was inspired by my own boyfriend quitting drinking for many years now, and just watching him and seeing him in our community not drinking but having a great time. I think when I quit drinking, I was like, I'm just gonna take a break. Like, I need a break, but I'm definitely gonna go back to it. By quitting, I realized I'm an addict. And then I relapsed after 8 months. And that relapse was so precious because then I drank for 3 months and I was like, wow, now I really can't lie to myself. I can really see that this is a problem. It's like when I start drinking, it's like there's a hole inside of me. And the same is true with that eating disorder and with men and any like addiction. I'm trying to fill that emptiness, but alcohol will never fill it. Anything from the outside won't fill this emptiness inside of me. And so my relapse was so important because I just gained so much more insight and perspective. Hindsight is 20/20. And so here I am now, and it's been 4 months of not drinking. By doing this video, realizing that drinking was a way for me to cope with social anxiety and my sensitive emotional nature, to numb it out. If you're thinking about quitting, alcohol or drugs or whatever, like, I really encourage you to just take a leap of faith and try it out, and you'll shock yourself. Like, I thought I was putting down something amazing, but I was actually putting down something that sucked, and that was a lie, and that just numbed me out, and it kept a lot of my pain alive. It kind of fed it. And now in my life, I'm not saying it's always easy. Like, it comes in waves. There's beauty and ease and sobriety, and also it's hard. And right now, my life is changing, and I used to go to bed really late, and now I'm going to bed early, and I'm getting up earlier, and I'm loving to do activities in the day, and I'm becoming braver recently and in socializing and meeting people and talking to them. And we have things in common, like, wanting to be well and spiritual. I will also say that I still smoke weed, so you could call me California sober. And I only smoke weed at night. I think it took me 10 years to actually get there with that. I used to smoke weed during the day, but it would just create so many issues. Like, the eating disorder hole would open up again, and I would be constantly eating, emotionally going up and down even more, super cranky. So for me right now in my life, smoking weed at night is working for me, and it's okay. Like, I'm not perfect, and one step at a time. And I also do psychedelics in nature only when I'm mentally well. I do not recommend it if you're not feeling very stable. And also, I've tried microdosing mushrooms. I'm more of a macrodosing gal, maybe because I'm an addict and I want to get high. But also doing it in nature during the day in the sunshine. If you've done it, like, it's spiritually transformative. And that's where I'm at with it for now. Chapter 9, where am I now with my muscle tension dysphonia? Currently, I've switched vocal coaches. I was trained for a long time with a classically trained singer who was an opera singer, and I learned so much and I eliminated so much pain with that coach. But what I've realized is I need a coach who's a contemporary singer that belts like me. So now I have a contemporary vocal coach that's helping me. And now that I'm reflecting, I'm realizing that yes, I may have been confused in some areas by being taught by an opera singer who wasn't able to demonstrate the technique that I so needed to develop as far as mixed belts. She was amazing, but I really can see now that I need the contemporary coach who sings just like me and who can demonstrate that and give me exercises for my contemporary style of singing. I'm also developing head voice and realizing that head voice can actually be very strong and powerful. It doesn't have to be soft. And with the development of head voice, I'm experiencing a lot of feel-good feelings in singing softly. And so just gaining confidence and also realizing how important head voice development is. And I think that's partly why my MTD, MTD was many variables creating, it was a perfect storm of variables creating the illness. But one of them is just saying, I don't want to develop my head voice. You need the head voice. To mix your voice, you need a strong head voice and chest voice. At this point in my life right now, I'm realizing that I don't feel safe mixed belting, because when you mix belt, you have to trust. And when you full belt, you don't trust, you force, you control it, you push. So realizing that and then gaining that awareness and having the right vocal coach to teach me mixed belting, and then discovering that belting with consistent patience and practice, mixed belt is way more sustainable. It feels so much better, and it's going to require me to trust, which is something I really want to do and something I really nurture. And it's fun to nurture it in my singing voice, to trust and to let go, and to be brave. These days, I do not often experience pain during speaking and singing. Sometimes I do, but it's not chronic anymore, and I know what it is. It doesn't control my life. I do experience tension. Again, I'm an emotional, sensitive person. I experience extreme highs and lows, and my mind is open to healing more and more. I still experience a lot of anxiety, a lot of dread and fear. You can hear my voice is a bit raspy because I'm talking about something so emotional. And it's hard for me to do these videos. It's not easy for a perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist. I actually tried to do these videos last weekend and I freaked out. Like, I did 2 tries and I tried a 3rd try, and then I just had a complete breakdown. My mind was racing. I had crazy anxiety. I was like, "Wah! Perfectionism, monsters coming." And so what I was able to do was just pull the plug, say, Liz, stop. We need a reset. We're going to take care of ourselves, and we're just going to do it next week. And then to remind myself that healing is not linear. And now I could still experience these issues in my life, or whatever you want to call them. But now I have healthy coping skills to handle it. And I love myself now, and I can take care of myself. I still have body pain, fibromyalgia. I always do this because to me, fibromyalgia is just like an umbrella diagnosis for, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. But for me, my fibromyalgia really is just tension in my body. And it's my anxiety and it's my fear. And it's like my personality traits of this perfectionism, my tendency to want to please, my tendency to overthink and intellectualize things like crazy. So all of these personality traits, my black and white thinking, that rigid thinking, all of that I've discussed in this video, my super sensitive nature, my extreme emotions, which can be amazing and terrible. Of course, I'm gonna feel physical pain at times, but I tend to it, stretching, yoga, meditation, therapy, all the things I've been talking about that are healthy healers. Chapter 10, where I am now with my borderline personality disorder and my mental health overall. I'm in a good relationship now, which is a good environment for me. I have good relationships in my life, great community. My eating disorder now is not as disordered. I do the intuitive eating thing that a lot of people are doing now, and I also call it an ancestral diet. You can Google that if you want. And I'm having so much success. I haven't binged for a long time. Yeah, sometimes I eat too many snacks, but it's not like crazy binging. I haven't purged. I don't even remember. So I'm in a great place with food. I live an intentional life these days. I'm not working too much. I have tons of boundaries now. I do what I love, and I've done the work to figure out what that is. I think another huge part is just accepting myself, accepting my shyness. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, that sets me apart from others, and it's really cool. I remember a photographer, a fan of mine, he watches me on stage and I seem very charismatic and very extroverted. And then he met me in person and he was shocked. He was like, wow, Liz, you're so shy, just like me, because he's shy too. And I could see in his eyes that was a compliment. He was fascinated by it. And I'm like, that is a cool thing about me, isn't it? And, I also comfort myself with, Kurt Cobain was super shy. Michael Jackson was super shy. Barbra Streisand really struggled with these issues. So I'm not alone, and maybe this makes me even cooler. So accepting that, accepting my pain, accepting my MTD, accepting everything. This can be such a relief, and it can be liberating, and it can actually move you more into healing. The more we surrender and accept and not resist, the more we heal. And I think that's unconditional love. So moving into unconditional love at this point in my life. Currently in my life, I am in a band called Liz Bills and The Change. And in this band, the driving force is no longer fame. It is focusing on community, focusing on what I have now, a lens of abundance instead of perfectionist dreaming, it'll be good one day, but it's not good now. I'm not good now. I am good now. My band is awesome. I'm focusing on creativity and doing music because it makes me happy and it helps me to connect and communicate with others. So this is a way to heal that feeling of social anxiety where I can't connect with people. I found it through music. I can connect, and I can heal myself this way and heal you, and we're all healing each other. And I have become the healing warrior at this point. Again, always working on my tendency to be a perfectionist. These videos are helping me with that too. People pleaser, codependence. I'm working on all of that in my band. And, because I have these platforms, I run my own business teaching and I run the band, I can work on all of these traits about myself in these modalities and become stronger. I can help myself to heal, I guess, and to just feel more calm and relaxed and sure in my body. And not saying that I've gotten to that place. I mean, who does? That's life, going up through ups and downs. Yeah, so just accepting my sensitive, emotional self. I'm not crazy, nothing's wrong with me. And then I continue to do the emotional, physical, and spiritual work, tending to that part of myself always as being a mother to myself. That's what I do. And also realizing that in times of great distress, my borderline symptoms can reappear. So my borderline is really dormant a lot of the time, just like my eating disorder now, and maybe even my MTD and fibro, you could call it dormant. but it can pop up in times of great distress. And that happened to me this summer. I went into severe depression and I was self-harming again, having suicidal ideations again, and discovering this about myself and being really upset about it and feeling like I'm going backwards. But no, healing isn't linear. And that's just another chance for me to work on unconditionally loving myself and accepting myself. It's all good stuff, baby. So I hope this video helped at least one person, and it did, because it helped me a lot. I want to end with this. It really is all about loving yourself, accepting yourself, even the ugliest parts of yourself. Like, if you think about it, when you're in an unconditional, loving relationship with someone, they see you at your worst and they love you. And so to give that to yourself is a true game changer. And remember, when I started my journey, I hated myself. And then it moved into wanting to love myself because of that pain. And this journey is just a progression over time. So you can do it too. And if you don't know where to start, maybe just wanting to love yourself is where you start, and then you reach out for help, because no one can do it alone. I'm realizing that all I need to heal is inside of me, not outside things. So cultivating all of this in me with help of community and support is what's going to fill that chronic emptiness. So next week, I'm going to be sharing my perfectionist video. So make sure you subscribe so you can see that next week. I'm going to be talking about how I manage my perfectionism and how I heal it and how I work through it and all of that. So I love you so much. I'm sorry if this was all over the place, but I'm really trying not to be perfect. And it's hard for me sometimes to not be perfect, but it's important for me to show my real self. It's a little messy, it's a little and it's amazing, okay? So like, share, do all the stuff. I love you so much. I have my vocal lesson to go to now, and I did it. You can do it too.